Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Let's see, I'm trying a different setup today. How's everybody doing? I hope you can hear the music just a little bit. Technology is such a bully.
Good morning, good
Technology is such a bully, y'all. Like, for real, for real. I don't know what the deal is. Hey, Elisa Crochet, good morning, good morning. Y'all know I likes to start right on time. But today, it's just acting just as funny as it wants to. Just as funny as it wants to. So what I'm trying to do today, I am going to be sitting down for our demo today so that everyone can see the machine, hopefully a bit more clear than when I'm working on the table, because this is how I usually operate when I am working with it, and I'm able to hold it steady with my thighs, with my legs, when I'm working, and also, you know, jam out, watch my shows, what have you. So if you can see this, let me know. Again, I'm working on adjusting. I think it's pretty much in frame. I also have this going on my laptop so that I can kind of see both at the same time, but I am realizing there's a significant lag, but that's okay. We're gonna work it out. We're gonna thug it out. All right, we're gonna give people a few more minutes to jump on. In the meantime, we will start with our stretches as normal, because again, it is always important that we are being mindful of our body and taking care of our tools, right? So we're just gonna start with some light rotation. Oop, oop. We're gonna move this for now and go ahead and just rotate our wrists here. Oh, I can actually show with both hands for once. So you're gonna rotate around, going both ways. Just like that. And then you also wanna make sure this is something you're doing going in the opposite direction as well. Okay. Next, we will stretch our hands out and pull them on in. Stretch our hands out and pull them on in. Stretch our hands out and pull them all in. All right, and lastly, I'll start talking about our next, what we're gonna focus on today while finishing these final stretches. So during the first 3 demos, we reviewed the basics, how to set yourself up using your partner yarn, how to do it both left-handed and right-handed, how to do tubes, and also how to do the panels. We also just looked at the general mechanics of the machine, period, right? So we looked at the handle part, we looked at how many different pins there are. So for anyone who's just joining, I do have 48 pins on this machine. We talked about that there is a counter, right? We talked about, where is it? We talked about here that there is the panel switch and the tube switch there. So what I want to focus on today is how to count your stitches once you get working, and also just to give you guys some of my general measurement information that I have worked out thus far. Matter of fact, I need to grab my measuring tape so y'all can see that as well. So today is mainly just kind of demo, but if you have questions, drop them in the chat and I will share that as I'm working. Alrighty, I'm just gonna do a quick panel, I believe is what I'm gonna go ahead and start with, just so I can kind of talk about some of those pieces. Give me just 2 seconds. I'm gonna grab my measuring tape as well. All right. So measuring tape on deck. I am gonna work right-handed today. I got my partner yarn on deck. Partner yarn today is going to be white. I am working, yep, I said I'm working right-handed. My primary yarn, my main color is going to be blue, even though it's wrapped all around itself. We'll have to get that worked on out. and then we'll get working. There we go. There we go. I love taking apart these knots just as much as I don't. Like, in some ways it's fun and kind of like therapeutic. It's like solving a puzzle. And then in other ways, I'm like, if you don't get your life together, nobody's got time for this. Nobody got energy for this. All right. Partner yarn getting started. Like I said, we're going to just kind of do general demo today. So as a reminder, the white is how you know that you're at the end. And then you've got your counter over here working for you. Can you see the counter? Counter right here. All right, so I'm gonna start this point and make sure it's in camera. Going around, in front, around, in front. This is just for the first row so that it can catch itself. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Around and around. And we're doing this for all 48. I think in the next demo, I'll show you all how to do panels for less than 48 pins when you're not using the whole space, which is why you'll see I've got markings with my Sharpie here on some of my pins, because I figured out how to kind of measure that out and make it work for me. So as a reminder, when you're threading it through, make sure it's popping down all the way or it's going to cause a problem. Go ahead and thread it through your tension bar. I broke mine, so I'm just going to wrap it around the leg. I have another knot here. This is what happens when you keep using I only use scrap yarn and donated yarn for my demos, but obviously scrap yarn has been through it before. It's been on a project or two before, so sometimes it doesn't want to act right. All right, so I'm going to do a few rows just with my partner yarn, just to get myself going. So you'll see the difference here. It's a lot more stable for me than when I'm working at the table just personally. This is how I like to operate. You can't see my hand. I'm holding on to the back of the machine right here. Sometimes I also hold on the side or on the sides over here. All right, making sure I've got enough yarn to work with. Boo doo boo boo. I'm gonna keep it kicking. All right. So that was 3 rounds. This is round 4. And this is about to be round 5 completed. I kind of know it's coming up to the end here simply because there's a tail, right? So that can always be used as your marker. I'm gonna go ahead past this white one and I'm gonna swap in my main color. With my partner yarn, I'm dropping it between the last pin of my round and the first, so that I make sure I fully complete the round, right? So if we're doing panels, panel stitches are going to always drop 3, alrighty? So that is good to keep in mind whether you're doing the 48 pins like we're doing today, or if you're doing a smaller amount. I'm going to change this here to panel. So it's on 2. I've pushed it up so that now it's on panel. We talked about this in the second demo. So now as I'm going around, it's gonna stop. And then as I go around, it's gonna stop. Got my yarn, main yarn color threaded through all the way down through that circle. Got my tension lined up here at the bottom. Like I said, I like to use my hand and hold on just a little bit. And now I'm going to crank it. If you can see, it's not letting me crank any further here because we're on panel, so I've got to go now back the other way. Resetting my counter. I'm going to hold it to make sure that it's actually catching underneath of that hook. All right, going left. Now that I know it's catching, using my hand here, and I'm holding it down below. And you'll see this is the beginning, right? I'm cranking, and it is stopping. So at this point, it is stopped, so I can't do anything but go back the other direction. When you do this, make sure, once again, you pull your yarn. You may not be able to see my hand down below, but pull your yarn taut, either with your tension, or again, if you broke your stuff, to do it down here, just to make sure it is fully catching. When you're doing these panels, if you are kind of loose about it or just letting the machine run, all of your ends are going to be kind of sloppy and uneven, which makes it hard then for when you're trying to do a seam, right, for a project or for a garment that you're making. All right, so now I'm gonna go back the other direction. Ooh, let me make sure it's all the way down. Okay, so I'm pulling it taut, pulling it taut, pulling it taut. Once I know it's caught under a few of these, I can keep it rolling. Stop. Once again, this is stuck. So I'm going to go back the other direction. Again, if you have questions, please let us sister know. Hey, Cherry Pie Crochet, welcome, welcome. Make sure your yarn is pulling typically from the middle. I found if you're pulling it from the middle of your skein, it makes life so much easier, kind of with most projects, but especially with this dang on machine. Again, you can feel where it stopped. I'm gonna go back the other direction. I'm gonna do a few rounds just like this, and then I'll show you guys how to count the stitches, and I'll review the measurement information that I wrote right onto my machine. If you are interested in getting your own knitting machine, I do have a link to this specific one, the SENTRO, both options with like materials and just the machine itself, so that you can learn this machine right along with me. I'm definitely getting better with each project. It was a little bit of a learning curve, but you know, we in there. We in there, shorty. All right, back around the other way. And if you have questions, please let me know. Like I said, this is our 4th demo. I believe for my next demo, I'll probably show like a lot of the different mistakes that we can make. And from there, let's make some stuff. Let's create a little something. You know what I mean? All right, it is stopping me. That is my cue. When it stops you, go ahead and listen. And instead of pushing it, sometimes you can get in a groove while you are winding back and forth. Again, you know that this marks where the end is. Keep that in mind instead of continuing to go, because then you can avoid potentially breaking your machine, breaking your levers, snapping one of the pins, right? They have replacements for them, but who wants to have to order replacements, right? So do your best to be kind to your project. Hey, Scooter, good morning. All right, so I'm gonna do a few more of these. Back and forth, because again, anyone who didn't join earlier, I have the machine on P for panel right now. The machine is on P for panel. All right, I'm gonna go back the other way. Just like that. Like I said, I apologize, y'all, if I'm delayed. I'm trying something new so y'all can see it from a different angle. And I am watching the comments and whatnot on my laptop. But it's delayed, like several seconds delayed, if not like 60 seconds delayed. Which was an interesting little tidbit to put together. And it's definitely helpful to know. All right, let's do a few more and then we can count. And again, you guys can see we've been working a panel. So there's a whole gap that's been created here on purpose, right? This is intentional because it's on panel. So when you do panel with all 48, the amount of stitches you will be working with is actually 45 because it's going to drop the 3, which is helpful information for when we do panels of different sizes in the future. And I will show you guys a dress I've been working on with the cleanest stitching yet. I ain't perfect, but I'm getting there. Definitely getting better. So you can see how this works. And with the stitching for the dress, I'm going to show you. I did not use the whole machine. I marked off, like I mentioned, the length, the amount of pegs that I believed I needed, based off of the measurements that I have worked out that I'm going to show you guys today. Alright, this should be good. So this may not be the way it tells you to do it in the book or that other people do it. This is the way that I have made it up. But again, I like to save my yarn, so I'm going to put this in the middle, even though it is a big boy. I'm going to put it in the middle to get it out of the way. It is tucked in there for real. And then I'm going to swap it back out, though, with my partner yarn. All right. So especially when you start adding a lot of different colors and whatnot, then it'll be super helpful to kind of have all of them here and available to just swap in and out with. All right, so like I said, this is from practice with another project. No shame in my game. I like to practice. I like to do all I can, mess up all I can to learn something, which is exactly how we started these demos, because I was practicing and people had questions. So here we are. All right, so I've pulled my partner yarn from the middle. I am going to place it here between the pegs, line up my tension down at the bottom. I like to, at this point, turn my work back to tube, because it doesn't matter to me if the partner yarn is also going back and forth, because that is going to be removed from the project. So to me, it's not important. I'd rather be able to just finish the project and roll around and around and around and around and around. All right, so here I go. So because I have switched it back to tube, I do not have to worry about it getting caught. So if we were still on panel, it would stop me right around here and tell me to go back the other way. But we not, so I don't have to. All right, here we go. I must say, doing this seated feels so much better on my knees today versus standing for extended periods of time. So y'all will have to tell me how this process was for you as I continue to grow as a videographer as well, and teaching crochet art. And yes, this still counts as crochet art, fiber art, even though it is with the knitting machine. Hey, Cut to Print, thanks for joining us. All right, so I'm going to do a few more rows with this partner yarn, and then we are going to go ahead and release in these streets. All right, and you guys can see the partner yarn. So just like I added in this partner yarn, partner yarn, this is also how you switch colors and whatnot with projects as well. Okay, and this still will continue to tell us that we are at the beginning of our work. All right, taking this now, dropping in between, only matters so much. So now what we're gonna do, I'm gonna continue going right-handed, and it is slowly going to release, which we have practiced and seen. Going to go around one full time. That was one full, so now it should be releasing each and every one of these pegs. Release, release, release. Sometimes it gets caught, but it looks like we're doing good today. All right, everybody but one. Nope. Yeah, everybody but one release. So we just got this one that didn't want to. Okay, so I'm going to de-thread, remove that. So what we're looking at now, slide y'all to the side, nothing personal, nothing personal. Okay. So we are looking at the material right here. In the goal, we are going to count these stitches just so that we can get an idea of, and practice, hey crochet diaries, of what it looks like to count the stitches, right? So I don't know about anyone else out there. I only know how to crochet. So I had to figure out and learn what each stitch looked like and how to count them when working with the knitting machine. Ooh. So looking at this, let's make sure it's as clear as possible. So each bump here counts as a stitch or a round, right? So with our example, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Come down some. 10, can you still see? 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Ooh, child, you know I just lost count, but that's okay. All right, the point is, just like with crocheting, there are two sides, just like that. So we can see these V's coming together, and each time there's a set of V's, 1, 2, 3, 4, that is how you will count those items. All right. Similarly, if you're looking at it from the back side, same kind of thing. Each row. So this would be like the back stitch for crocheting. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? Don't lose count again, but that's okay, because the point is to show y'all 10, 11, 12, and whatnot. All right. So what I did with this information was I wanted to know so that I could make sweaters for myself, pants for myself, sweaters, dresses, and items for friends and family. And eventually I want to do this for orders. I wanted to get an idea of how many stitches would result in a certain amount of inches, right? So knowing that this pair, make sure everybody can see it, knowing that this pair is basically one peg, this is another peg, this is another peg, I took my tape measure and put it against my own gauge. And so for my own swatch, if you will, 1 inch for me in the tension that I use, 1, 2, 3, 1 inch is basically 3 pegs wide. So when on the machine, 3 pegs does not seem like 1 inch. 3 pegs seem like 1, 2, maybe 2.5 inches, right? 3 pegs on the machine looks much wider, much taking up much more space. But when it's removed from the machine, you gonna stay there? You gonna stay there? How about it? When it's removed from the machine and on a garment, it looks a bit different. And so if we know that this is 1, 2, and 3, those 3 are there within the 1 inch. Now I can say this with confidence because at first I mismeasured it and thought that 1, 2 would get to 1 inch. I think I had it stretched out, and I measured it on my body when I was wearing one of the skirts that I made instead of doing it flat here, which led me to add these notes onto my machine. So if you can see that here, I have that 48 pins equal a certain amount of inches. Now I have to update this because 48 pins equals 24 inches when it is being worn, right? Because it's a 2 pin per inch when it's stretched out a little bit versus it's 3 pins per inch when it is not stretched out. So it depends on the aesthetic and look that you are going for. Similarly, the measurements will be a little bit different if you are, good morning, let's see, Trouble and Tings, good morning. The measurements will be a little bit different as well if you are using double knit yarn, right? So I have here that 4 pins, can you see that? Is it? Okay. 4 pins will give you 1 inch if you're using double knit yarn. So as I continue to work on different projects, I'm continuing to update and tweak my notes and measurements so that I can make things that aren't just the size of the machine, right? So I've also worked out how many rows. In the rows, I have an arrow pointing down. The rows are going to tell you, the rows, the rounds, how many times you're working in this direction, right? So right now, 5 rows equals 1 inch, if that is clear at all, for size 4 yarn, right? 6 rows for double knit, or 3, is giving me the 1 inch. And again, where's that information coming from? It's coming from trial and error. Good morning, thugging it out, and then taking my tape measure and lining it up for myself. So why is this important? Why the heck did I stress myself out, make all these mistakes, and then write all over my machine? I write all over the machine so I can have it there to reference. I can use that. I also write on the machine. Let's see if I can get to it. When I'm working on specific projects, I write on the machine. Like I said, I'll show this with another video, but I do Sharpies here and like, okay, small top, I know this is how far I need to go depending on what I'm working on, right? So if it's I think this was like for 12 inches across or 14 inches across, then this is the stopping point for me when I'm working on panels. So I've been mapping all of that out for myself so that eventually I can quickly and readily pull up my machine and say, okay, this is gonna be small top size, this is gonna be large top size, and so on and so forth. How is that helpful? So if you guys can see a dress that I created, this is the whole dress. Let me go from here. So is it perfect? No. Is it progress? Abso-freaking-lutely. And what I did here with this dress is use the skills from using a panel on the machine. And then I used my measurements that I broke down here to make this dress fit myself. So I measured across myself what the front would need to be, what the back would need to be. And I took into consideration if I want it to look or fit a certain way when it is stretched versus if I want all of the detailed knitted piece to be more visible. Again, is it perfect? No. We can see here where I reduced my tension a little bit or had a little bit of an issue. But on the back, that didn't happen, right? For majority of the project, that didn't happen. So we getting there. We ain't there yet, but we getting there. And so keeping with this, with those measurements, it allowed me to know how much I wanted for the one panel, where to start, where to stop, and gave me very consistent stitches, right? Having consistent stitches also allows you to then create cleaner seams and lines. I don't know how many of you all were on when I did my first sweater. The seams were terrible. I mean, trifling terrible. But you can see here, and I have it stretched out in certain places because I like the detail. But you can see that now I'm getting better at lining these up. Like if I just showed you this, you could not offhand know where the seam is, right? Versus where we go a little bit down and I want a little more peekaboo, we can see the seam a little bit more. All right, so we learning, we getting there, and the more I work out, the more I'll share with you guys. But that is why and where the measurements come into play, okay? The next video, I will show you guys also how we talked about how to count these individual stitches today, how to count them so that you can line stuff up to start to create your seams. Now, if I wasn't so difficult, which I tend to be, I could just sew these bad boys, and I'm sure, I'm sure the seams would be even more crisp and clean. But I really want to, like I said, I'm a crochet artist. I am fast and efficient with crocheting, even though I can sew as well. And so I like to continue to work out how to crochet down these sides as well, so I can do different patterns, different unique touches, embellishments, and whatnot along the sides and in different areas, right? So that sweater that I made, I had crocheted down the middle and the sides, and at the tops and on the bottoms and stuff to add different edging. Ooh, English. To add different edging little touches and designs. All right, that is everything for this morning. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you learned a little something about this knitting machine. Again, as I continue to learn more, I will continue to share. I've really been enjoying getting to know this bad boy, and I am beyond optimistic on what I'm going to be able to do with it and what you are going to be able to do with it. I can't wait till we start making things with it. All right, everyone. Thank you, as always, for hanging out with me. I've been Dee.